This video lecture will be talking about the timeline of how psychology evolved from a branch of philosophy into science. Philosophy, science, medicine, and theology all influence the development of psychology. At first, psychology was a three-way synthesis of physics, physiology, and mental philosophy. However, psychologists use the scientific method, which includes stating a question, proposing a theory, and then constructing rigorous laboratory or field experiment to test the hypothesis. Psychologists use study finding to develop evidence-based technique for problem solving and life improvement. So, how and when did the evolution of psychology started, and who are the people involved in the said matter? 428 to 347 BC, or before Christ exists, Plato, a Greek philosopher who argued for the role of nature in psychological development. Also, Plato identified three parts of the psyche: reason, feeling, and appetite. 384 to 322 BC, Aristotle, a Greek philosopher who argued for the role of nurture in psychological development. He considers psychology to be a branch of science that examines the soul and its attributes, but he considers the soul to be the general principle of existence. 1596 to 1650, René Descartes, a French philosopher, introduced the idea of dualism, which asserted that the mind and body were two entities that interact to form the human experience.
1632 to 1704. John Locke is an English philosopher that believes that personal identity is a matter of psychological continuity. He believed that personal identity or the self was founded on the consciousness, rather than the essence of the soul or the body. Perhaps, Locke's most significant contribution to psychology was his part in establishing British empiricism. Several other questions that psychologists still argue today, like the relative contributions of the nature versus nurture, have their roots in these early philosophical traditions. Philosophers like Aristotle, Plato, John Locke, and René Descartes contributed to the emergence and evolutions of psychology during the ancient times. 1832 to 1920. Wilhelm Wundt, who distinguished psychology as a science from philosophy and biology. He is a German psychologist known to posterity as the father of experimental psychology and the founder of the first psychology laboratory at the University of Leipzig, Germany in 1879. 1856 to 1939. Sigmund Freud, an Austrian psychologist who founded the field of psychodynamic psychology. He is well known for his contribution to the development of the theory and practice of psychoanalysis. His theory suggests that human behavior is influenced by unconscious memories, thoughts, and urges.
In 1867 to 1927, an American psychologist, Edward Bradford Titchener, founded the idea of structuralism, the idea that all thoughts are structured by basic elements, specifically sensations. Structuralism is the view that all mental experiences can be understood as a combination of simple elements or events. This approach focuses on the contents of the mind, contrasting with functionalism. In 1878 to 1958, John B. Watson, who was an American psychologist, popularized the scientific theory of behaviorism, establishing it as a psychological school. Through his behaviorist approach, Watson conducted research on animal behavior, child rearing, and advertising, as well as conducting the controversial Little Albert experiment and the Kerplunk experiment. On 1886 to 1980, a Swiss psychologist, Jean Piaget, was the first to make a systematic study of the acquisition of understanding in children. Piaget's theory had a tremendous influence on the emergence of developmental psychology as a distinctive subfield within psychology, and contributed greatly to the field of education. He is also credited as a pioneer of the constructivist theory, which suggests that people actively construct their knowledge of the world based on the interaction between their ideas and experiences.
1904 to 1980, Skinner was an American psychologist known for his impact on behaviorism. He himself referred to his philosophy as radical behaviorism. He suggested that the concept of free will was simply an illusion and instead believed that all human action was a direct result of conditioning. He also proposed that emotions could be translated into a person's predisposition to act in specific ways. 1905, IQ tests developed. Using standardized tests, Alfred Binet and Theodore Simon developed a scale of general intelligence on the basis of mental age. Later, researchers refined this work into the concept of intelligence quotient, or IQ, mental age over physical age. From their beginning, such tests' accuracy and fairness are challenged. 1917, Army intelligence tests implemented. Standardized intelligence and aptitude tests are administered to 2 million US soldiers during World War I. Soon after, such tests are used in all US Armed Forces branches and in many areas of civilian life, including academic and work settings.
1938, The Behavior of Organisms. B.F. Skinner publishes The Behavior of Organisms, introducing the concept of operant conditioning. The work draws widespread attention to behaviorism and inspires laboratory research on conditioning. 1951, First drug to treat depression. Studies are published that the drug imipramine may be able to lessen depression. 8 years later, the FDA approved of its use in the United States under the name of tofranol. 2014, John O'Keefe, Maybrit Moser, and Edward Moser shared the Nobel Prize for their discovery of cells that constitute a positioning system in the brain that is key to memory and navigation. Many of these factors continue to shape and influence science and technology's contribution to the field of psychology in today's era. For example, clinicians use the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM-5, to diagnose mental health conditions. It is published by the American Psychiatric Association, or APA, and is updated as new research becomes available. Although the initial version was produced in 1952, the fifth edition, which was released in 2013, is the most recent iteration. In the 21st century, the focus of psychology shifted to the cognitive realm, where, rather than relying solely on empirical studies, there was a greater acceptance of rational thinking and other mechanisms of acquiring information and knowledge, such as reasoning, memory, attention, and language.